Greetings, campers! Welcome to the world according to Yoni. As I am every episode, I'm Yoni Marten, your host. And today we have a very, very special show for you. No politics. Well, maybe a little politics at the end. But today's show, I have three very special guests. My brothers, Richard, Seth, and Ethan. We are the four brothers who make up the film White Buffalo, An American Prophecy. And that's what today's show is going to be about. So I don't want to waste a lot of time telling you about the film, because I think we all will tell you about the film when we're talking. But there are a couple of things I do need to set up before we get started. One, if you are listening to the show on a podcast rather than watching it on YouTube, there are times you may hear music and not hear us talking. That's because I'm running a clip from the film. So just know that up front if you're listening, not watching. The second thing is we're going to start with the trailer to the film. People have expressed a lot of positive feedback to this trailer, so I'm hoping you all will like it. And beyond that, I want to say that we've had 2 virtual screenings of White Buffalo. We had hundreds of people, and the response has been remarkable. I don't think I've ever in my life been involved in a film project that received the acclaim this one has so far. I want to thank the people who have taken the time to see the film. I want to thank all the people who have commented, especially our friends Eric Roberts and Michael O'Keefe, who were very kind to post things on Twitter about the film. So without further ado, I am going to run the trailer for White Buffalo, and then you will meet my brothers, Richard, Seth, and Ethan. And I warn you now, beware, because when the 4 of us are together, it gets very strange. I hope you enjoy this.
We are coming to the end of this time, and we are coming to a new changing of society. Our great ancestors that have left us here are returning back. They may not come back as they are, but they come back to us to tell us what we need to do. Because somewhere throughout our lives as humanity, we forgot that we are spirits living on this earth.
When you share something like this, even if it's subtle, there's a change. Okay, campers, you've just seen the trailer for White Buffalo, An American Prophecy. And here is the team. Here are the four brothers from the trailer. My brother Ethan, my brother Seth, my brother Richard. Hi, guys.
And Jonathan.
Oh, me, yeah, but they know me, you know. They know, some people know me. Some people know that Yoni equals Jonathan. Some people heard Jonathan the other night and were like going, who's that? I'm like, come on, guys. Yoni is simply Johnny in Hebrew. Give me a break. We have a finished product now after all these years. I'm going to start with Ricky, since you were the person who first read the magazine article back in what, 94?
Mm-hmm.
And started working on a script. How does it feel now, 27 years later?
I think it's 26 and a half, or if I do the math, but yeah.
Why quibble over half a year when you're that many years into it? You know, but how does it feel? I mean, the film is finished. It's there.
Surrealistic. I mean, it's been, part of me for over a third of my life at this point. I think I would say a quarter of a century. That's a long time. I think it'll take on even more significance, even new life, when it's actually in distribution or broadcast.
Yeah,
what do you think the finished product? I mean, if you go back 26 years to what you were envisioning, and then what actually it all came to be about, and that America you couldn't have envisioned America being the way it was 26 years ago.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, it sort of, that sort of parallels the question of does it affect one? How do you explain a project that unfolds over a quarter of a century? I mean, there's so much life change to begin with that happens in a quarter of a century, including children and dogs and, yes, national events, and it can't be encapsulated. I can't encapsulate it in a few sentences. It's part of my life. Part of life.
That's a pretty intense part of your life, I think.
Yeah, sometimes intense. I mean, there've been tragedies along the way. A lot of comedy.
Yeah, shooting the film was a lot of comedy, actually.
Yeah, we could.
I wish I had the footage of that I shot when we were all sharing a room. Was Dallas, and you were snoring your ass off, and Ethan and I.
Well, that could have been any city, but what you're thinking of in particular was in South Dakota.
Really, they all blend into each other.
Actually, some of that was in the original cut of the film, wasn't it? Did any of that remain? I forget. Did we take out
those are the outtakes Seth wanted us to have.
We wanted to focus more on the Indigenous than the Three Stooges or the Marx Brothers. So I think we put the focus where it belonged.
Really?
Yeah, I know the final product didn't reflect insanity.
No, I think
there's a lot of insanity in 26 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with us.
For me, it's been almost half of my life, and it's spanned four different decades. And when we originally began the film, we thought that the purpose of the film, trying to bring people together and, to help with mutual respect among all peoples, was a very important topic back when we began. I don't think what we anticipated. I think we felt that the world we would be living in 25 years later would be a much closer world, not one that got pulled further apart. So in that way, I think the film is more relevant than it would have been had we hit our original date of wanting to have this out in 2012, which at the time that's when we thought it was needed.
Because when, you guys were obviously involved in the project before Seth and I were. When I came on in 2010, the object was to be finished and have a finished film for 2012. Obviously, that didn't happen. And I remember being concerned, okay, is this going to still have validity? Is it going to still have meaning and relevance after 2012? And I think it actually is a blessing that we didn't finish it until, the end of last year, because it has more relevance. At least I think it has more relevance now than it would have had in 2012.
Well,
So,
all the elders, particularly the Dakota, whenever I would moan about how long it was taking and the length of the process, would always say, it'll come out when it's supposed to come out. It'll happen in its own time. And I think that actually, I agree with that.
Yeah, so
now
you do, yeah.
Not during the process.
But it was worth the wait. I mean, I'm very proud of having participated in this film, because I think it's a beautiful film. I think it's a powerful film, and God knows everyone who's seen it so far has pretty much had the same reaction. So, how far do we want to go back toward, you guys, Seth and Seth, Richard and Ethan, putting the thing together, getting this thing started prior to 2010?
This is the world according to Yoni.
This is okay.
It's my world.
You're the boss of this show.
Oh, okay. Then fuck you guys. It's my show. It's my movie.
I'll cry if I want.
Huh? Come closer to the mic.
If I wanna. It's my show, podcast, and I'll cry if I wanna. Cry if I wanna.
I'll only cry if people don't watch. So
you would cry too if it was your podcast too. Do.
Hey. So we didn't get Three Stooges for the film, but we got the Three Stooges today, or the Four Stooges. I guess we'll have to go for Marx Brothers.
We did not get the crooners.
Sadly, no.
Hello. I think
so. Let's get back to White Buffalo, which we really haven't started on too much yet. One of the things that we were talking about the other day that I think holds a lot of water is the fact that the elders play a part in this in so many ways. Like the fact that, we were speaking to elders of the indigenous tribes. Mom, was our elder when we started shooting this film. We'd already lost Pop, although he was still around when, Ricky was writing the script and batting things around. And then we've gotten to the point now we're the elders. 26 years, a lot happens, and that's one of the big things, as far as I'm concerned, that's happened. We've all got kids who were kids when this whole thing started. They're now adults.
Well, I mean, to put it in perspective, Hannah is older than, is almost the same age I was when we started. She
Wow.
might even be, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And now
So,
she's a married lady. So, you know, and I don't know how old I don't remember how old Jake and Josh were, or Lucas. You know, Angel's a month younger than Hannah, so but yeah,
No, Luke's 27. I mean, he spans the 26 and a half years.
mm,
yeah, I mean, I find that really weird, you know, if I think about it, because I mean, I remember when Ricky told me about the magazine article and said, "You got to read this," you know, and then he started working on a script, and it was really an interesting thing. And then, of course, finding the financing kind of took time, so other projects came up. In the meantime, we all did our own, and we did things together. But we came back to this, and over the course of the 10 years we shot this thing, uh, it's really interesting. We watch ourselves age through, you know, the course of the film, which in and of itself is an interesting thing. And I don't know how we tie that into the indigenous tribes and the white buffalo prophecy, but certainly our journey was pretty remarkable. You know, anybody want to comment?
I do, but I want to give Rick the first crack. And
No,
yeah,
you go ahead. This is more your cup of tea.
well,
You're the journeyman.
I mean, I remember when Rick was writing the first letters to the hiders and asking about Miracle. And he and I were discussing what a great idea this was, and it would make a, you know, it's a great story. And I think they sent you that picture of uh,
Miracle.
Miracle that you hung in the office. And we, you know, every day I'd come in to say hi, we see the picture, and we start talking about it. And then you were writing to Hunbat's men and all sorts of people where you're talking about, oh, well, you know, we could get this interview and we could go here and talk to these people. And, you know, we just knew we wanted to make this movie and who we were going to talk to. And then you started typing away, and, you know,
I think I actually maybe did type. I don't. Did we have computers when we started? I guess we had computers. We sure didn't. I don't know if we had email back then.
Didn't have cell phones.
No cell phones.
Yeah.
well, they were like this, you know. And
No, I didn't have a cell phone back in
no,
the
I mean,
90s.
there were mobile phones, and they were like
Yeah, they were
$1,500.
like cars, you know,
Right,
pick the
exactly.
thing up.
And, you know, we were in the movie studio in Suffolk, and, you know, we had the Hugh Grant's Discretion heard round the world. And we had that movie that we were distributing that Blockbuster had ordered 100,000 units of. And the day before we shipped, Hugh Grant got
Busted.
detained. And I mean, that was it. Blockbuster, you know, canceled everything. And, you know, we went from a 20,000 square, or what is it, 10,000 square feet, the soundstage, Rick?
The soundstage was 10,000.
And the facility, I mean, we were on how many acres at that point?
26,000 square foot building.
And we went into a loft studio office space with, I think, about 350 square feet. And, you know, we were trying to land softly and recover from that. And, you know, again, Rick hung the picture of Miracle in our little cubby hole of an office. And as we were doing theater productions in our little 49-seat theater at that point, every day, you know, part of the topic of conversation was white buffalo, white buffalo. And, you know, the story just fascinated us. And what the birth of the white buffalo meant to the indigenous. I think, as I recall, there was a story that the hiders told that, you know, one day they've got this white buffalo in their on their farm, and suddenly one indigenous elder shows up and starts praying with the buffalo, not to the buffalo, but with the buffalo as a spiritual being, a messenger. And it was at that point that the hiders understood, you know, this wasn't, no pun intended, a cash cow. This was something very sacred. And they went from thinking to themselves, I'm going to make money off of this, to this is a great responsibility to care for this being. And I think in the first year, from a little article in their local Janesville paper, I think they had 10,000 visitors. And by the time we got to them, I think they'd had 50 or 100,000 people just come through their farm to, you know, commune with Miracle. And
Hey,
what's not... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, let me interrupt you for a second, because people are sitting here hearing the name Hider and Miracle and going, what the fuck are they talking about? So for everybody who doesn't know or hasn't seen the film, Miracle was the white buffalo calf born on the Hyder farm in Janesville, Wisconsin. And that
1994.
And that's who the article that Ricky first read was about, and what got him into this in the first place. So,
by the way, something else I need to point out, Ethan was talking about the distribution deal, the video deal with Blockbuster. Blockbuster's long gone. We're still here.
That's true.
It's a miracle.
Take that, Blockbuster.
It's a miracle. That's right. It's beautiful.
Johnny, in answer to your question about elders,
yeah,
for me, the movie didn't really take on any meaning until I saw the first cut and was horrified by the way me and Mom that get together went. And I don't we talk about Richard and Ethan. I mean, because I'm like the last person in on this movie, and we talk a lot about seeking the advice and the wisdom of the Native American. And it's not that I was ever against that or had a problem with that, but I sort of, it was Richard's quest and Ethan's quest, and sometimes I felt like it was disingenuous of me being there, because I wasn't seeking any wisdom. I wasn't seeking any advice. I was just hanging out with my brothers and, you know, taking the week off and doing whatever. And when we came back together in practically a year ago today, when we finished the last scenes of the movie, right before the pandemic started, I just knew what I wanted to get across, that it was that this last time for all of us with Mom, I don't know if I think we were all seeking different things, wisdom, advice, her memory to work. She had no fucking idea what we wanted of her. She didn't understand it. It just made no sense to her. And it was just a very sad moment in time. And I think when Steve got that, he was able to shape that mom as the elder, and our journey. And my journey wasn't to South Dakota, my journey wasn't to Dallas or to here or to there. My journey was just to bring myself a little closer to my family, my own family.
What do you remember about the Indian reservation at Southampton?
I said, to refresh my memory, it's all coming back, Richard, but I can't.
The confusion and almost the longing in her eyes. I could tell she felt she was losing the connection.
Hey, Ma. You like being surrounded by your boys?
All right, so Seth is talking about, the time with mom, and I have to agree, that was towards the end of her life, and she didn't. I mean, it was, we're surrounding her, and she's very happy to be surrounded by her sons, obviously, but she didn't really, get what was going on. She wasn't following. She didn't really remember a lot of the things we were asking her, but it does bring to mind that when you started writing this, and Ethan, when you got involved in it, was there an intention for it to be the journey of the four brothers and the family? Because I was more under the impression at the time that it was really about the Indigenous prophecy and how that affected them.
The sequence was, I read the article about Miracle, I think it was October, November of 1994. And it explained that a white buffalo had been born and what the significance of the white buffalo was to the Lakota, the Cheyenne. And it occurred to me, this is a very interesting cultural phenomenon. This would be an interesting project. And I was sort of looking at it at arm's length as an anthropological curiosity. So I started doing some research particularly into the prophecies, because the significance of the white buffalo is that when they start to be born in increasing numbers, it heralds a special era, an era of redemption, sort of like a messianic era. Like Jesus to Christians, or the return of Jesus might be to Christians, Mashiach to Jews, and so forth. So as I started to get into it and do the research, I became emotionally involved, which I wasn't at first. And I thought, okay, well, it's interesting. The Lakota prophecy dealing with the white buffalo is very similar to prophecies in the Hopi tradition, and also to prophecies that were prevalent among the Mayans, Toltecs in Mesoamerica. So that was a little evolution. And then, as I started actually writing, it just occurred to me, it just sort of evolved naturally. This is the story of four brothers who happen to be Jewish, who set off on a journey of exploration around the Americas to discover the wisdom of the continent from the real Americans, namely its indigenous inhabitants. And then actually that evolution actually happened in a very short period of time, a matter of months. So that was the evolution. Did I have any idea of what was going to evolve in our family? Probably not, because I never envisioned this would be a quarter of a century project.
Yeah. Well, as you said on the Zoom when we were doing a Q&A for the people who had watched the virtual screening, it was a lesson in how not to make a movie. Ethan, I know you've got on that one.
Well, I mean, you know, there's so many topics here.
Yeah.
In terms of the content, you know, it's a documentary. The brothers, to me, were always the interlocutors, the connective tissue that would bring us from destination to destination to meet the elders and give them a stage with which to speak to a wider audience, unfiltered, let them speak for themselves. You know, when we originally thought we'd shoot this in a couple of years, you know, we didn't see some of the broader aspects. But as I began to realize this was not going to be a sprint, but a marathon, I broadened my scope to envision the brothers as a microcosm for the family of mankind and how we interrelated with each other. And if we could all get along and be respectful of one another and go on this journey together, you know, with 4 different opinions of how the world works, you know, and I find that, to use your analogy, we're like 4 parts of a battery. Separately, we work pretty well, but when the 4 of us are put together and headed in the same direction, it's very powerful.
Then our ships all sail in the same direction.
Yeah. So, you know, that was what I anticipated our part in this was. And since we were seeking wisdom from people who were telling us, no, don't wait until you have your financing. Shoot now because we're dying and our wisdom is being lost to the next generation. So just go out, get what you can, and it'll happen as it's supposed to happen. And then it occurred to me, you know, because Pop was with us when we started this project, and then he was gone. And as we went along, you know, Mom started to decline, and we'd lost one of our elders, and we were losing our mother, our last elder. And that took on a special significance. So as I looked at us as a microcosm for the, you know, the main part of the film, it was very important to capture Mom and that effect on us, and to tie in with what Seth was saying. You know, we were with her. She didn't, you know, she wasn't totally, you know, together in terms of her memory. And so we were losing our stories. You know, it just brought home, you know, how important it is to appreciate the time you have and to make sure that, you know, what you have for your family and what we can appreciate from the indigenous, not to lose the culture and the stories, you know, the things that had been taken away from them. So I was hoping in our own small way, we could help them at least have a voice unfiltered by anybody else, to just allow them to speak, tell stories, and tell how they felt about the appropriation of their culture or the Holocaust that was taking place.
For my part, my favorite, I think my favorite moment in the movie is seeing when Richard and Ethan they go to see the 2 old sisters.
Rita.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't
Grandmother
there.
Rita.
All right, so when they go to the first one, and she pretty much tells him,
I don't trust you.
what I was afraid of being told, like who the fuck are you? Get out of here! You're wasting my time.
She basically
What-
says,
white
she says,
man?
"You're
What-
just
what-
wasting my time."
I love that when they said that to you, and I love that they kept the shot. In of you two, both of you, kind of recoiled at once, like you'd been slapped, and and I love that part. I love that was in there.
Yeah, I love the fact that you and I
love
weren't
that you kept
there.
that in there.
Well,
And then it was all the more sweeter when her sister cried when Ethan, had his scene with her. So
don't give away the film. I mean, listen, it was important that they felt safe to say what they really thought. That's what I was hoping for, and it was important that people understand that there were challenges in making the film. There were true trust issues because they'd been screwed throughout history. And it was a fair position for them to take. They didn't know who we were, and they learned to trust us. And Rita was great. And I love the fact that she was just honest with us and said, was it her mother or her grandmother said, someday white man's going to come. Listen to what they ask you. Basically, don't trust.
They want your goodies.
And all you were asking her for was wisdom and memories, and she was saying, "Why should I share that with you? Yeah, I've lived the whole life. Why the hell? Why should I share that with you?" And I love that somebody said that, because I'm sure a lot of white people go to the natives to seek wisdom, and it might get old for them sometimes.
I think it's beyond old. It is. And so it was important to, one of the points of the film is
Okay, 26 years. Yeah, to persist. It wasn't easy. That's
yeah, but
that comes through. That's
beyond
cool.
that. It's what I'm hoping comes across in the film is that there are cultural differences, and one is not better than another, but you approach people in a respectful manner, and you listen. And you're not always teaching, and when you're learning, you're not always taking. So you listen with respect and you sit with respect. That's why, the family gathering around the table, having fun, speaking to each other in a respectful manner is a microcosm of how
Are you referring to our family speaking respectfully around the table?
Well, our version of it.
Yeah, I was going to say our version of it.
But dealing with other cultures respectfully, honoring their traditions, not trying to foist, one's own traditions onto somebody else, like was done to the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. They're not Indians. They never were Indians. Columbus made a wrong turn, and gave them a name that they're scratching their heads saying, "Who are you talking about?" Because there were hundreds and hundreds. I think there's still 500 nations that exist within these borders. 500 different nations, and if you ask the average person on the street, they have no idea. If you ask somebody why, a $20 bill would be offensive to somebody who's indigenous, they wouldn't understand why. Because Andrew Jackson was the one who created that march across America, the Trail of Tears. And Hitler got his idea for concentration camps from Jackson and the way he treated the indigenous. They don't understand if you say, take a look at Mount Rushmore. There's, you know, we might look at Mount Rushmore and go, oh, those are four of our greatest presidents. And for the indigenous, they look at Mount Rushmore as a shanda, a tragedy. One, because the Black Hills are sacred to the indigenous. The Plains Indians all came to the Black Hills. It was for people to understand what the Black Hills are to the indigenous. It's like going to the Holy Land. That was the place where people pilgrimaged. You know, that was their sacred hills. And the Stone Nation are thought of as the oldest relatives. So everything has life, everything has a creative force. So, you know, these people just started carving the faces of four presidents into the faces of the elders, the Stone Nation. Not only that, they call them the four thieves. You know, the first people to, you know, put them in reservations, the first to break a treaty, the first to steal their land. And even Lincoln, you know, hung warriors who left the reservation in order to get food for their starving people because they were being starved out. So you have to understand that this happened. You have to understand the history, and you have to understand that to this day, people on the reservations are not being treated fairly.
That may be the understatement of the millennium.
It is, but people don't get it.
I think some people get it, you know, just like some people got that the last 4 years have been a little bit dicey. Some didn't get that, but we did.
Are any of them in your audience?
As far as I know, no. My audience is pretty progressive. I've stolen.
You bastard!
You know, yeah, I've stolen the majority of my audience from Stephanie Miller and her show because it's a good place to steal people from. As I've stolen most of my guests, you guys are some of the first guests I've had on the show who I didn't steal from Stephanie Miller.
The white one is lightning. The black one is thunder. And they're not names I gave them. They're names that they told us who they were.
This is a surprise. This is even better. This is a present. Wake up this morning. I didn't know I was going to see the white buffalo.
The only one. He's a real one. And he is amazing.
One of the things I want to talk about, because while certainly the indigenous nations and prophecy are the reason this film was made in the first place, aside from us, there were a lot of contributions, a lot of interviews with people who were not members of the indigenous nations. We had Rabbi
Zalman Schachter.
Zalman Schachter.
Shalami.
Zalman Schachter.
And he was great. I mean, I loved listening to him. He was one, but we had so many good people, a lot of whom didn't even make it into the film. Uh, it's really an amazing thing, all the contributions. And when you get the contributions from all these different areas, all these different countries, all these different religious backgrounds, a lot of the things they're saying were the same, which, you
Well,
know,
that was the point, and that was actually part of the original premise, that there was a commonality, not only among Native American traditions, but those, and the emphasis was on the prophecies in other indigenous traditions around the world, including ours, Jewish, but on various continents, Asian, and that's why it seemed to make sense to interview people from various traditions.
Yeah, and while it's called White Buffalo, an American prophecy, and we talk about White Buffalo Calf Woman, that was more of a springboard. That was okay at the start, but as Rick was saying, the fact that we have more in common was reason to start with White Buffalo Calf Woman, but to talk to the elders of other indigenous traditions and other traditions as well, so we could discuss what we have in common, why it's important, why mending the hoop is not just one indigenous nation, but it's mending the entire planet, all of us.
Yeah, I think the concept of mending the planet, it's a little highfalutin to some degree, but there's truth in it, and certainly we make whatever little contribution we can. But I have to admit, the first time I didn't see the rough cut. I saw pretty much the finished product, and I sat there and I go, "Wow, okay, I'm moved. I'm feeling something, and I was a part of it, and I don't even know if I understood what we were creating, what we were doing."
Well, maybe you didn't.
Well, you guys may have, but like Seth, I mean, when we started, whether I was, behind the camera, shooting or in front of it, a good deal of it was I was getting to be with my family, and I was, getting to have fun because I like shooting. I like being in front of the camera. I like being behind the camera.
But why am I here?
I didn't know how I was going to feel about the people we met and everything, the experiences we went through. And I mean,
it's a documentary. So the idea was not to know the conclusion. I mean, Rick wrote his story, and I tried to maintain as much of, what Rick wrote and what he wanted included in there. But there were times we went places and we just did things.
Over 26 years, you're going to evolve to some degree. There's just no way around that. But I was kind of like Seth in terms of the fact that I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what it was going to happen, or hey, listen, I climbed a fucking mountain, guys. I'm afraid of heights. You and Ricky are hanging over the ledge of a mountain. You're doing handstands, and I'm sitting there going, "You guys are out of your freaking minds." it's nice to know to some degree that, as we've gotten older, that the insanity has remained to some degree. But, by the time, like in Sedona, where we were climbing that last mountain, and I said, yeah, guys, go ahead. I'm going to sit under the Bodhi tree. And then I think, Seth, you made it a little further than I did before you.
And Sedona was my first contribution to the movie. So I, felt that Marten competitive challenge that, we're going for the top of the mountain. But shit, I came from LA, with my kid. I didn't even have the right shoes. I was going to fall off that mountain if I kept going. I knew it. And at one point I had to say, nope, I'm good. Like you, I'm good right here. So I was thankful that you'd already done that. So when it came my turn to say to all the guys and the group, remember, let's not forget the group, I'm fine right here, and I had a good time for the half hour or hour that I was alone.
Yeah, I loved being under that Bodhi tree.
On the side of a mountain, in Arizona, just Sedona, just looking out, it was just fine. I don't remember where Luke was that time. Luke went to the top, I think.
He went with us.
That's another thing, by the way, about the film that I have to admit, for me, was really incredible. And that's the fact that almost the entire family was involved in one way or another. I mean, obviously, there's the four of us, but, we had Jake and Josh.
They were in Sedona.
And when we were in Colorado, too. Lucas in Sedona. Angel took pictures in Virginia Beach. She shot. I remember before we even started, sitting around that table behind you, Richard, with Nancy and Tanya.
No table behind me.
Yeah, we know you're in the kitchen. We've seen Nancy back there preparing. Don't mess around.
Yeah, I'm in the kitchen, but there's no table. I'm at the table.
Are you at the table? Okay, we're at the table. So we were all sitting around that table making reservations, trying to get the best plane fare we could get.
No, I've replaced the table in the intervening years. It's a different table.
You've replaced that beautiful wooden table?
Yeah, it's actually in our garage now. I inherited a nice glass table from my mother-in-law. May she rest in peace.
My one regret is that Hannah wasn't able to be in it, and she's part Cherokee. So it would have been meaningful. She's lived vicariously and been very supportive, but I would have liked to have had her on one of the journeys. But she saw the sneak preview, and
there's always a sequel.
Thank
series.
You for saying that, Ricky, because that brings to mind the question. Okay, we are in the process now, and when I say we, I mean you two, of trying to find distribution for the film. We've had two great virtual screenings with, I don't know, hundreds of people watching, and certainly the people I brought in to watch loved it. I mean, I have heard nothing but raves about the film from the people who I brought to watch. But there was so much footage shot. So much. I have to admit, I do wish we kind of had a camera going behind the scenes to catch some of the stuff that went on there, because I think that would have made an entertaining film in and of itself.
Well, that was a different movie too.
Oh, a very different movie, but it would have been really funny. However, Seth knows because
I want to see the shot in Sedona at the restaurant, at that restaurant in Sedona where we filmed the commercial for the restaurant in order to get a free meal at 10 o'clock after a long day of shooting. I want to see that scene in the movie.
That commercial would be interesting, but I'd rather have the footage of all of us who were sitting in the van waiting for Ethan to negotiate that deal. That was fun. But okay, where do we go from here? What are the plans, the hopes, the dreams, the desires,
Aspirations.
Use every adjective you want.
So we feel that in an hour and 42 minutes, there was only so much we can cover, and there was a lot of very rich content that wasn't able to be included in the film. There were also people that we can only treat somewhat superficially in an hour and 42 minutes. And it's my hope and aspiration that ultimately this can be turned into an ongoing series where we can go into depth with some of the folks that we spent time with during the making of the film. So
since you made the film, they've been going through a lot of stuff.
The film is an hour and 42 minutes?
Right.
Okay. How many hours of footage did we shoot to get to that?
I think it was over 1,200.
Yeah, we had 3 cameras going sometimes. We just shot the interviews, and as Rick was saying, there's so many interviews that didn't even make it in. I mean, really good interviews.
Yeah.
And
some of which I shot. Yeah, I remember.
Right. And we'd be at an editing session and going, this takes us in a different direction, or it's just too much, or it was covered here, and it breaks your heart. You have to.
My audience is going to watch this and they're going to go, these guys get a film made, for God's sake.
Yeah, I'm wondering myself. I wish there were more paint drying scenes. It would have made the job of trimming so much easier, and it would have cut down on the time. But again, I think the film is coming out exactly when it needs to come out. And I have if you believe in such things, I believe it happened the way it was supposed to happen. And, what's amazing to me when I look back is how many of the people that we interviewed and forged beautiful relationships with are no longer with us.
Yeah.
And, I started recounting, the people who are just no longer here. And it made it that much more poignant. And I'm glad we went through 20 different types of cameras and filming technologies. And I'm glad we went through all the pains that we went through to span all these years. Because if we hadn't listened to the elders that said, do it now, just do it, because we're losing our stories, the rest will come. Just go. Because
I think they said do it now because maybe they knew it was going to take 26 years and they wanted to do it before we all passed away.
That That could also be true.
If we'd waited,
thought.
if we'd waited,
Do it now. Isn't that what Nike's slogan?
I think they're
Nike
just
steal from the Indians? I mean, this is just another example
of cultural appropriation.
Yeah, the white man. Fuck
You know, the scene I regret losing the most was the ritual circumcision. I still think we should have left that in, but
Yeah, well, yeah.
I had one of Lucas. If you want it, you can splice it in. It's pretty harrowing.
you can splice it in. Did you just say that?
Oh, unfortunate choice of words. Yeah.
Did you get a close up?
Close enough.
No, I tell you, directing you guys was nuts.
Did you direct us?
I don't know that anybody directs the three of you. The most effective way to direct you guys is to give directions to somebody else, to tell them what you want, and then leave the room and talk to them through text while listening through a doorway, so that you wouldn't know I was around, so you could feel free to say what you really wanted to say. That was the way to direct guys.
Wow. You're smart. That's clever.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Reverse psychology.
Yep.
You can, it was easy for, when you got the interviews with the natives, it was usually one-on-one, and they were prepared and they knew where they were coming from, and general idea of where you were coming from and what you wanted. But when the four of us get together, and we weren't prepared. We were never prepared.
Well, actually, I mean, a lot of the Indigenous had not been on camera before. And the trick was to make them feel really comfortable and make them forget the lights and the cameras, and to just engage them in a conversation where they felt they were being listened to. And yeah, they were being listened to, and I wanted to give them a free, give them just that forum, but for them to feel that they had that and to feel comfortable in that atmosphere, that actually was kind of tricky. And I'm proud of a lot of those interviews.
Luke's
just
here.
Because.
Here's
Hey.
Luke.
Bring in Luke. Hey, Lucas.
Home from work.
Hey, Luke.
Good to see you.
I'm closer.
Say hello to my audience, Lucas.
We on right now?
Oh yeah, we're not live, but
we're on tape.
How you doing?
I'm good. Long day. How are y'all?
Doing great. Luke, a quick question for you.
Sure.
Do you remember your experience with the wolves, and how did that affect you? When you think back, did that have any long-term effect, or was it just a great memory?
I definitely call it a great memory. It's something I would definitely do again, I think. I just remember it was so cool. It just felt so peaceful. I would love to do that again. Absolutely.
Would you like to adopt a wolf?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I remember I had a friend in high school who used to take wolves out on walks, like in the mountains. And when I heard about that, I hit her up and I was like, hey, could I join that? But I did not follow through. But it was something on my mind because it was just a really cool experience.
Hey, listen, anytime you want to go back to Arizona, we can hook you up with Healing Wolf.
Yeah,
you won't have the benefit of all your uncles there. And
she'd love to see you.
Really cool. Sedona is such a nice place. I definitely would love to go back.
Yeah, I like Sedona a lot too.
So, what were the themes that you took away from the film?
Yeah, so climate change is just super important, and it's good to see, it being taken seriously in such a, people devoting their lives to it, and just that intersection of like spirituality and different religions, that in so many different cultures, it's important to care for the earth. And yet we've been at this place where we just don't give a shit anymore. And there's just, that massive plastic island in the ocean. It's just disgusting. It's just disgusting to see the way the world is. But to see so many elders and even the younger people saying, this is important, this is what we're here for, and we're ready to fight for it. It's inspiring. It's really cool. Seeing myself, never enjoyable personally. I don't like to see it. I don't like to hear my voice. So I think I miss the parts of that. But I remember I just looked pretty unhappy. And I think that was just kind of, my mind state at the time. It was just my general way. So, it was good to see that, like, that's definitely just not my face all the time anymore. So
that's I'm happy that you feel much better, and I really appreciated your observations.
Definitely. Yeah, like especially the photos with the wolves. I remember I'm just kind of looking like this, but like I remember loving it and being really happy with it. And I think that's how I felt at the time, but it just didn't kind of come through.
That's funny.
Well, it's good for us to know that you were actually enjoying yourself. So that's great.
Well, it's funny for me. You seemed so quiet, so shy, and pulled back. I saw growth, especially when the wolves came out. You lit up. Mm-hmm. That's for me when you really first came out of your shell. And so I always wondered the long-term effect of that, and how you perceive that.
Well, if you had a wolf gnawing on your elbow, you'd come out of your shell too.
I did.
They were just like big dogs. It was wonderful. I mean, it was really, I think that was a highlight for probably most of us, because
we
know what to expect.
Dancing with the wolves.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really kind of felt that way. It's like, oh, wow, you can really do this. You can really play with the freaking wolves. Woo!
We're here at the wolf sanctuary that Healing Wolf and her husband John operate, where they rescue wolves. Healing Wolf also holds a vision of a time when the races, the genders, and all peoples will come together in peace.
Your unseen thoughts will create your physical manifestations. So be in alignment with those thoughts. Be in alignment with the Great Spirit. Be in alignment with those that come to help you and to guide you. Those that have ears are listening for the truth and are listening for the messages, and they are feeling that truth within their heart. It makes no difference what color, what race, what religion, what you call the Great Spirit, the one that created everything. The messages are universal. They're for all people.
I want to kind of wind this up by talking just a little bit about the fact that for me, I think one of my favorite parts of the entire 10 years was last year when we shot the last few things in the film. I had a lot of fun on that one. I think I had probably more fun that week than I had on any of the rest of the film. I don't know why. I think maybe
very well organized. Number one,
organized. I think we were all very in sync.
It was local, so we got to pick our restaurants, and we ate well.
Oh, we ate really.
We had a very easy, simple, straightforward shooting schedule. And speaking for myself, I was prepared. I knew what I wanted to get across.
Yeah, there was one thing I wasn't prepared for.
What's that?
The drones. The drones. I wasn't prepared for the drone at the campfire, where I felt any second now this thing is going to fall and chop our heads off.
Just yours.
Oh, you're not talking about the Gregorian monks?
No.
Oh, I thought you meant those drones.
I know you did, but no songs. Just. I mean, they make nice shots. I'll give you that, but the scary fuckers. Then going in shooting the last scenes certainly for Seth and me. You guys had a scene to shoot after, but on mom and dad's graves, playing football over them. That was surreal, at least for me.
Make it sound a little more irreverent than it was. We weren't on the.
I don't know. I think it was fairly irreverent, Rick.
I didn't think it was irreverent. I pushed the idea, and I just knew it was the right thing to do. For me, I was seeing it as a catch. I was going to bring gloves for everybody and a baseball.
I did.
But it was cold. It was February, and the football was just easier. But the idea of having a catch while our parents were just hanging out, and just seemed to me like
that was very natural. I mean, it
wasn't surreal. It wasn't bizarre. I figured this is who we are. We're guys who have catches.
Yeah, in a cemetery.
We were with mom and dad.
Yeah,
and we were, we paid our respects.
I can't imagine they wouldn't have loved it.
Oh, I think they would have adored it.
Yeah,
I don't have a doubt of that.
They would have been so pleased to know. I mean, if I thought of it when they were alive, I would have told them, "Listen, one day we'll do a scene over your grave, and we'll have a catch." And I'm sure they would have loved it.
Yep, would have absolutely.
Not to give anything away about the sequel, but there will be another graveside catch in the sequel, hopefully in better weather. We'll get the mitts out. I don't know if it's a softball or a hardball, but we're not going to disappoint our audience in that regard.
How do you think
are we going to use the drone shot again and bring out the Navy AWACS flying over?
Absolutely. We want to poke that hornet's nest, get the military-industrial complex involved.
That's right. We in our final moment. We didn't.
I call that production value.
That would have been nice if we shot them flying over after us. That would have been cool.
Well, listen, actually, we actually started to get a little worried. We packed the
I was there. I remember.
The fifth time they came around,
I didn't think we were going to get out of that cemetery alive.
Yeah, they could have bombed us. After all, it's only a Jewish cemetery.
I expected them to be waiting for us at the gate.
Well, when they started...
I really didn't think we were going to get out of there.
When they started strafing, I wasn't sure we were going to get out alive either. But, then I thought, wow, this is great production value. No. I want to go back to the graveside for a second.
Okay.
It's the director in him.
I know.
And somebody's got to bring up the Orloffs or the other family.
I knew you were going to bring that one.
Veal Prince Orloff.
we may or may not want to say their names.
Well, you just did.
Well,
who's going to know? I mean,
let's just put it this way.
I don't think the Orloffs watch my show, so it's okay.
They were the ones who, in the end, were offended. In my script, they were the ones getting the "fuck you" shells, but in essence, it was the gardeners getting.
Well,
you have
let's set it up.
Or let's the set it up. Goes, what the hell?
All right, so when you visit graveside, a Jewish cemetery, you bring a stone or a shell, something as a sign of remembrance and respect. And we would bring our own very special shells and stones. But every time we'd go to Mom and Dad's graveside, and they had, the plaques that were flat against the ground, our stones and our shells were gone. And they'd all be, 6 feet over on some other family's loved ones. They were taking our shells. And I think Rick, Seth, you guys
the Orloffs, they took our shells. They took Daddy's shells.
And I think you guys were getting a little offended, a little bit.
Highly offended.
I mean, I think you were getting pretty pissed.
That's why I brought waterproof, indelible black magic markers, the thick kind, every time we went after that.
And what did you do, Richard?
In the interior, after we replaced,
he wrote a very personal note to.
After we replaced the shells on
kind
our
of an Alice in Wonderland note,
like the 5th time,
I wrote on the interior, because these were the Nautilus type shells, so you could write on the interior, and I wrote, "Fuck you, Orlov." Leave our shells alone.
Leave our shells alone.
Now, here's the punchline. About a week ago, I was driving by the cemetery, and I wanted to pay my respects to Mom and Dad. And as I'm driving up, there's a guy with a riding lawnmower. And he stops, he gets off the mower, and because of what it would do to the blades of the mower, he's picking Mom and Dad's shells and stones off, walking them over to the poor Orlovs, and placing the shells there, and then continuing on his business. So I feel like we owe the Orlovs a great big apology.
Absolutely no way they could come and replace the shells where they belong. So I stand by my position. Fuck you, Orlov.
I think they just thought somebody was visiting.
Johnny, that was a cut. That was a cut.
Yeah, you think so? I'm not losing the best part of this.
No, I'm saying after "fuck you, Orlov," that's where you cut.
Yeah.
Everything else is anticlimactic.
Well,
we don't have to explain or argue it.
I can thank you guys for being here and doing the show, and say to my audience, well, you've all now met my brothers, so you should understand why I am the way I am.
You and your 3 brothers have decided that you want to do this thing because you want to wake up people, you want to bring them to greater awareness. So that makes me hopeful, but optimistic. That'll depend on how the people who will watch this will wake up with that.
Well, there you have it. Those were my brothers, Richard, Seth, Ethan, with a guest appearance by my nephew, Lucas. We're very proud of this film, and I really hope you all get to see it because I think it's an important work. It has deep meaning for us. I know it has deep meaning for all those who've seen it so far. So hopefully this will make it to the public very soon. In the meantime, I know I started the show saying no politics today, But I have to get a little bit in because, we've had a lot of entertainment the last few weeks. We've had Teddy Cruz going to Cancun rather than taking care of his freezing, hungry constituents back in Texas. And then we have Ted sneaking back into Texas and, blaming it on his kids and his wife. There's a guy who knows how to take responsibility. This is entertainment value at this point because I expect nothing from the Rethugla QAnons in Senate or the House. There's nothing to be said for them. There are two things, though, that I want to talk about very quickly. One, I would like to know what the hell is going on with the FBI and the Capitol Police. Why have there been no arrests of any of the senators or congresspeople who were conspirators in the terrorist takeover of the Capitol on January 6th? We all know there were conspirators in Congress. Why has nothing been done about them yet? I do not understand this. They have video from January 5th when terrorists were given tours of the Capitol by either the Congress people themselves or their staff. So what is going on? These people need to be dealt with. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. The other thing I want to mention before we go is Joe Biden has been in office for a little over 1 month now. And in that time, I have received emails and messages from Democrats and liberal progressive organizations saying, why hasn't the president done this yet? Why hasn't the president done that yet? I mean, one of them, I believe it was from Code Pink, an organization I happen to like. But Code Pink sent me a message complaining that President Biden has not yet dealt with normalizing relations with Cuba. Look, I'm all for getting relations with Cuba back on track. But give the guy a fucking break, would you? 1 month in office, he's got a pandemic with thousands of American citizens dying every day. He's trying to get Congress to pass a relief package, and he's trying to get us back into the Paris Accords. He's trying to do so many things. And this nitpicking of why hasn't he done this, why hasn't he done that as of yet, is insane. 6 months from now, okay, then I understand we should have accomplished a few more things. But 1 month into his presidency, with all that's going on in this country, leave the man alone and let him try to do his job. We have a human being in office for the first time since Barack Obama left. We have a married couple who actually loves each other. This is a major step forward, people. So that's my message for today. Let President Biden do his job. Give him 6 months. And then if you want to bitch. But until then, shut the fuck up. And now that I've said that, I want to thank you all for joining me for this very special episode about White Buffalo, An American Prophecy, the film that I really hope you get to see soon. And thank you for being with me for this journey today. I really appreciate it. If you like the show, subscribe. I need subscribers. That's the name of the game, folks. So please, like the show on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. And I will be back next week with a brand new show. Am I going to have a guest? That's the question of the hour. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay sane, and have some fun while you're at it. Bye-bye.